This is Rana, and I have a layout to share today featuring my two sweet little peeps, also known as my granddaughters. I am using the Bunny Hop collection from Doodlebug, and I'm going to go through the papers real quickly here and decide what I might want to use on the layout. I made a few selections beforehand and did a little bit of prep, but at this point, I'm not sure what I want to use for my layering and embellishing. I know I want to use tags, so I've got that one pretty well decided on. And just looking at some of the different Peep things. And then for these are actually not from the Bunny Hop collection, but I found two that I really liked. And the first one is the Peach Grid. And I was really sure that that's what I wanted. I love how it looked with my pictures. It just enhanced the colors of the girls with that on that peach paper. So I do change my mind, but we're going to start out with this. I also had some Scrappin Happy Flair. It's the canvas flair, and it had little peeps, and then the other one there is flowers. And I love that. And I'm also going to do some shakers here with a die set that was gifted to me from a good friend, a good scrappy friend. So I'm kind of showing you the dies there. I prepped that by cutting the shaker outline 5 times for each of the bunnies. So I planned on doing 3 bunnies, so I cut a lot of white and made layers. So I'd already have that part done. Instead of using foam tape behind it, because it is a real thin one, I find that just cutting it several times and then gluing it together with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, it's sturdy, it sits up high enough to hold the sequins, and that's just the perfect way to do a narrow shaker like that. If you have a thicker frame, then I always use foam tape because it's so much faster, but when you do have a nice thin little overlay that the shaker where it's going to sit in there, that's the easiest way for me. So here I am just trimming up my pictures and getting that light pink mat on there. I don't measure, so I cut 12 times instead of measure twice and cut once. Nope, not me. I just keep trimming a little bit off, and if it doesn't look right, I trim a little bit more off, and that works for me. I love my guillotine trimmers. I used a tonic one for years, and it broke at a crop recently, so there was a Creative Memories consultant there selling the smaller trimmer, so I picked that up while I was there because I just can't live without a small trimmer. That's what I've used for so many years, and that's what I'm used to, and I can't cut little bitty things with this great big one. It works great for cutting 12 by 12, but you'll see even with the tags, I cut one and then I'm like, nope, I need my little one. And I'm still getting used to this Creative Memories one. It's a little different than the tonic one that I had before, but it does the job, and I love that you can cut even the tiniest little sliver of paper using this, and it never leaves a fuzzy edge or anything like that. I've tried every type of trimmer, and this is what works for me. It's just easiest, the way my brain works, I guess. So I started going through all of the tags that I thought I might use and trimming those up a little bit as I'm still thinking and deciding. I don't do all of this on camera. Cutting those little edges, it's easy to cut those with scissors. I don't know why I'm using the trimmer here, but I think I'll quit here in a minute and then move on to when I had some vellum, and I was thinking the girls' dresses are not exactly the colors that are in this line. I love the brightness of this line. It's so fun. But I was toying with the idea of taking some vellum and covering some of the elements just to soften it. And that works. But I decide after I get going here that I like the brightness. I think it's adorable. It goes perfect with the Easter feel, and so I'm just going to go for it and leave the bright colors in here. And I love how the finished layout looks. So I end up not using any of the vellum. other than, I guess I did use the vellum for my shakers. Instead of using the acetate that I normally would use on a shaker, I like the vellum because it does soften those sequins. Just because it's a bunny shape, it's supposed to look like a peep, and I was afraid if I did it with the completely transparent acetate, then those sequins would distract from the little peep eyes and nose. So I just went with it. I really like how that turned out. You'll see that here in a little bit. So my design for this layout is upside down L, I guess you would say. I'm going with the pictures and tags at the top, like you see there. And then at the bottom, for the L part, I'm going to add just little strips of paper and some stitching. I do love my hand stitching, so I'm going to choose different colors of thread and 4 different stitches to use for in between these layers. I toyed with the idea of using some of the stickers as some of the layers, but I knew I was going to be stitching, so while I'm trying to decide what I want my layers to look like, I thought I'm going to work on these tags again. So I start snipping off those edges, and I think I will still fuss around with the placement of those tags a bit more, trying to just make sure. I know they're not going to, the photos do not go all the way across, and so I wanted to make sure that it was an added mat behind where the spaces were on each edge, and then the space between the second and third photo. I knew I wanted to embellish in there, but I also wanted to have a tag that went partially down through that so that it carried a nice solid look throughout that band across the top. So I found these little doilies. Those are also by Doodlebug, so I'm going to incorporate those in my clusters. I thought they were a great base for a cluster, and it wouldn't distract from the little shakers that I'm going to make here in a little bit. And now I decided that I really want a background, just like a layer behind my background, I guess you would say, so a border. That one was too light, and so I keep digging through until I find this nice darker shade of a pink plaid, and that is in the pack that does, it's not bunny hop, but these Doodlebug colors look so fantastic together. The lines always match, and I love those tone-on-tone complement collections that go with lots of different collections, I guess. Fumbling with my words today. So I decide on that pink, and I decide that I needed another solid color for one of my tags. So I wanted more yellow. Yellow is probably my favorite color, so I cut a little strip for a border that ends up, I run out of room and I didn't even get it on there. And then I'm also going to cut a tag out of that yellow. And I like how that looks, and I like the added yellow. There is no yellow peep on their dresses, but I needed the yellow. It complements the other colors, and I really liked how it looked. So still fussing around a little bit, trying to decide. And here's where I'm thinking, yes, I do want to add the embellishment cluster in between that second and third photo. So the bunnies that I'm putting on there, it's just the 5 layers of that outline that is going to hold the sequins. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the background together. And I love this paper, and so I'm going to have to get that. I measure and think, oh, let's get this perfect, and then I just go. Nobody has time for all that measuring. So I clip the edges out for this so that I have a nice border, and then I still have that dark pink if I need to add more of that in any of my layers or anything, and I do end up using a piece of that. You'll see here in a little bit for one of my favorite parts. So I get that, and I get that cut down so that it'll fit inside the border. I flip it over to put the glue on, and I love it. It matches so perfect for their little dresses, and I like how the pictures looked. And even though I was set on that grid, and I do love a good grid, I fell in love with this side. And it's just a little tiny floral tone-on-tone pattern. and I'm embracing the brightness of everything else, and I thought, why not? We'll just go bright. So I'm going to pop up my photos. I want them to stand out, and I love foam tape, so I probably don't do a layout without some. This is the fun foam that you can buy at Walmart. It's adhesive on one side. It's not too thick. It works great. And I am sticking each one of these. You can see it comes in different colors, and it doesn't bother me to use different colors on the same layout because you can't see the foam tape anyway, or the foam, so that doesn't matter. So that is popped up, and then I'm going to get my tags all ready to go. In each of the tags, I'm going to add some thread that I've used for my stitching. So that will tie that same soft thread look. I love the look of thread on my layouts. That's why I do so much hand stitching. So that'll just tie that through from the borders on the bottom all the way up to the top with the bows and things that I put inside the tags. So I'm trying to decide how much space I need, and I want the tags pretty close to the top. This L design, I don't want to lose the L, so I really wanted it to be pretty close to the top. Here I finally am cutting that yellow tag. I just used a different tag as my template, and cut a tag, poked my hole in it. I'm going to even add a little hole reinforcer here in a minute that gets covered up and you can't see anyway. I go find my hole reinforcer punch and punch a little bit for that, just out of a scrap of one of the, I believe it's one of the things that I used for matting, the pink that I used for matting. Liking how that looks. Still thinking. There's the hole reinforcer. I used to use 2 circle punches to make those, and sometimes it worked honestly better than the hole reinforcer because it seems like the hole reinforcer punch, the hole is just a little bit too big compared to my hole punch that I use for everything else. So I still use the punch, but I go back and forth because you can cut a circle using a circle punch and then just use your hole punch that you're using for those pre-made tags, and it works perfectly too. You don't have to have the hole reinforcer punch. I like to buy all the tools, so I have one, but again, whatever you have, make it work. Okay, at this point, because I wasn't sure how much space my title would take up, I needed to get that title down before I added those borders, and I wanted my sweet Lil to be the same size as the word Peeps. So I chose a smaller font for the top, and then Peeps in a bigger font. And the yellow is a Doodlebug Puffy Alpha, and then Peeps is out of a Bella Boulevard Puffy Alpha. And the Bella Boulevard and the Doodlebug, the colors work so well together. I just keep it together. I love both, and I intermix. If I'm doing a Bella Boulevard layout, I will pull out my Doodlebug alphas because they go perfect. And I sometimes also use the background papers, and for so many of those collections, the colors are so similar that they work well together. So got the title on there so I can start adding in some of these. I cut them in different, some of them are straight. This one is at an angle just right along with the plaid. I just cut off part of it right along one of the lines. And then the little heart piece is actually off of that borders paper. And I believe the Peeps is also off of that borders paper. I just chose 2 of those. Put a little banner edge on the end of the pink. And I was going for not too much of a white background in between the very white backgrounds, if that makes sense. So that's why I cut the yellow, because I felt like I had too much of patterns that had a distinct white background, and so they wouldn't be close together in my layers. I wanted to have a solid pink, or not solid, but the little tone-on-tone pink. And then even that plaid kind of reads a little bit more solid. It's definitely not solid, but it reads a little more solid than the ones that are printed on the white. And as you can see, I am out of space. So I am not going to get to be able to add the yellow on, even though I really wanted to when I try. I go ahead and leave that off, and I'm going to be able to, I guess, fix that or pull that yellow in down at the bottom with one of those little doilies. So it all works out. Here I'm just really trying to get that yellow on there and thinking, oh, I guess I could overlap one. But then I didn't want to just have one that overlapped, and I knew I wanted to get that stitching in. So I just disregarded the yellow. At this point, I've gone ahead and added adhered all of those layers together, and I didn't want you to have to watch all of that. So I'm going to go on to the shakers, and as you can see, this one, it looks like I had 4, and I'm just gluing that 5th one on, and it makes it so nice and thick, just 5 layers of a heavier weight cardstock with that Nuvo glue. Then one of the punches is a solid that fits exactly behind this little outline. So I use that to do the background, which is the blue color in this case. And then that same punch punched out the vellum, and then I used some Nuvo black, and I think I show that here in a little bit, some Nuvo black to make the eyes and the nose. There is a punch, or not a punch, but a die for that. But I really like this black. It's kind of shiny, and it looks really pretty on there. So I'm going to let those dry because I don't want to get everything, I don't want to get the sequins in there and everything when the glue is still wet for these layers. I know when you're using the Nuvo glue, you don't have to worry about the sequins sticking to the edges like you do when you have foam tape. That's one of the other reasons I really like to layer the several layers of cardstock, because the sequins won't stick to the foam. So that is really a benefit also to just adding the layers. And if you don't mind die cutting several layers, it's not hard, just a little bit more time consuming. But honestly, putting the foam tape all the way around and making sure it doesn't leave anything. Oh, here's the Nuvo that I use to make their little eyes and nose. And it is really cute. And it shows up really well. It's like puffy. So just adding for each one. So for the blue background, the bunny has a blue outline so that it covers up the white. And then there'll be a pink one, and it will have a pink background and then a pink outline. You can see the pink one there. Then I also have a yellow that I'm going to use as well. So if you're not interested in shakers, feel free to fast forward through this because it takes a minute to make these little shakers. But I'm so glad that I had this little set that my friend gave me because they turned out so cute. I didn't have any ephemera at all from this collection, so I knew I had to do something, and I can't pass up sequins and shakers. They're so fun. I don't mind at all spending a little extra time to make my own embellishments. I think it's fun, and it does take more time, that's for sure, than just throwing some ephemera on there, but it's kind of worth it to me for something different. Don't get me wrong, I love the ephemera, and I buy a lot of ephemera for every collection, so I don't know why I didn't have any with this one. Maybe when I was shopping, because I bought this at a crop, maybe they didn't have any, or maybe it was just not something that I chose to pick up that day. I don't know, but I do love the collection. It's really cute, and I was thrilled to get this from my friend and be able to use that instead of coming up with some other kind of ephemera on my own. Oh, I thought I had these already glued down, but apparently I did not. I must have just glued down the layers, those border layers down there, and not the tags yet. So I'm getting all this worked out while my bunnies are drying. I want them good and dry before I add sequins. Some of the tags are so cute on the back side too. It's hard to decide what to use one of those that's just plain on this side because they're so cute on the back too. Getting each of those put down, and I have a little, it's actually to clean off eyeglasses. I use that to wipe down my pictures, and I think these pictures, for whatever reason, and I print all my own pictures, but for whatever reason, they got some sticky. So I don't know if it was when I flipped them over, maybe when I was laying them down over those layers, there might have been some stray adhesive dots stuck to the front of my pictures, but that little eyeglass towel, it worked well. And here I'm trying, still haven't decided which way I want those things. I'm going to fiddle with them a little more, but the eyeglass towel, it does wipe off really anything off of your pictures, so that worked out pretty well. I ended up not using the brighter large stripe, although it was super cute, but I got that little plaid in that matched the plaid the plaid strip going down in the bottom part of the layout. Decided I wanted that one actually straight because it's right over top of my title, and I hardly ever do anything straight. All of my pictures are always wonky because that's just the way I like them. I don't like anything too straight. You can tell with my tags, I have all of them a little bit wonky. So there's my yellow, and I like that a lot better. And it works well with the blue flair, and that is canvas flair actually from Scrappin Happy Studio. I love her flair so much, and the canvas, it's not real thick, and it's just so pretty. I love what it adds. So here I'm deciding on thread, and I had gone through my basket full of threads and chose several colors that I thought matched really well with this collection. And if you are interested, you're using this collection and you want to know what each of those colors are, I don't think I showed you each of the threads or anything, but I can list those. If you leave me a comment, I'll look them up and those in there for you. I use a Tim Holtz ruler that has holes in it, so you get perfectly spaced holes. And the tape that's on each side of my ruler, I can just wrap it right around the side of the layout with that mint tape that I get from scrapbook.com. And that works so well because it holds it still, but it doesn't rip your paper. So I use that a lot, especially when I'm doing just a straight strip like that. I can get my holes nice and straight, they're evenly spaced. I wasn't exactly sure what stitches I wanted for each of these. I just knew I wanted them to be a little layer between each of my layers. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm not going to show all of this stitching, but I thought I would give everyone a little glimpse into some of the different stitches. So I'm going to go a little bit closer. I do struggle filming stitching because where you have to work when you're filming compared to how I normally would stitch, it's just a little bit awkward. So I'm not really this awkward when I'm stitching normally, but for the filming process, and then on this one, I added my tape and it was right over top of my holes. So then I'm trying to go through the paper, the tape, and everything. This first stitch is the first thing that you do is go all the way through the stitch with a back stitch. So I'm going to go all the way down to the end, just a regular back stitch, which just looks like stitching straight across. If you don't know what a back stitch, you make a stitch, you go from hole 1 down to hole 2, up through hole 3, back down through hole 2. So as you do that, you're getting a solid line of stitching. Then you just work on the very top of your page. You're not going down through the bottom at all, except for right when you pull it up through the back just to get started, and then you're working on the top the whole rest of the time. And what you can see that I'm doing here, I believe this, I've looked it up before. I think it's called a lace stitch, but you take your thread and you go under the first back stitch, then you go over the next, and you're just working right underneath each one. Start at the bottom, pull it through, start, and then go down over from the top to the bottom. Then the next one is going to be from the bottom to the top and back through. So when you get to the end of the line, then you go back through again doing the opposite. So if the stitch is at the bottom of your back stitching, then it's going to be at the top for the next one. So it ends up looking, so there's a little bump over each of the back stitches, and there's a little bump under each of the back stitches. And it's a really pretty little stitch. I do it pretty often. I'm also doing, so I don't have any idea what the name of this stitch is that I'm doing with the yellow, but what it looks like, actually what you're doing is what you do when you backstitch, and what I'm doing for this one is what's on the back of a normal backstitch. So the back side of the work looks like a backstitch, but the front side is what normally would look like on the back side. I think it's just kind of a fun stitch. I don't know if it has a name. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone else do this, but I like how it looks, so I will do it every once in a while. When you're coming up from underneath, I want to, for every other stitch, have some at the top and the next one at the bottom. So it kind of looks like you go from hole 1, hole 3, and you go back down. Let's see, make sure that makes sense. Start at 1, go down to 3. Then you come back up through hole number 2, because hole number 2, 3, up through 2, and then down through 4. I'm sorry. I just had to work that out in my brain because I'm not actually stitching, and it comes natural as you're stitching. But when you're just trying to say it, words are hard. So you start at 1, go down to 3. Then you come up through 2 and go down through 4. Then you're going to come back up through 3 again, down through 5. Does that make sense? I hope you can see it with what I'm doing on there easier than you can understand what I'm saying, because I'm not explaining that well, I don't think. But you can slow the video down and look at what I'm doing also, and hopefully that will help you if you want to know how to do that stitch. Or the stitch I'm working on now with the blue thread, and this is actually pearl cotton, one of my favorite. It's also by DMC, but it doesn't have the strands. It's just more woven together, and I love that thread. I love it. So for this one, I'm just doing my normal chain stitch, and you start in the very first hole, come up through the hole, and then adhere it to the back, go down to the, so you go up through 1, go down through 2, then you come up through 1, go down through 2 again, come up through 3, and go on the top of the paper between, or go under that first 2 stitches that you made. Then you go back down hole number 3 again. You can see it here as I am doing it. I've shown you several, but you're doing the stitch and then you're going under the previous stitch on the top of your work. So you're going under the stitch that you already made, and that's what makes it look like the chain. You can see a close-up there of what that looks like. I finished the chain stitch, and then for my very last stitch, it's basically the same stitch that I did on with the green thread, the very first one. So you start out by doing your, instead of a back stitch that I did on the first one, it's a running stitch. So you start at hole number 1, go down hole number 2, come up through hole number 3, go down hole number 4. So instead of backing up so that it's a straight line, it's like in every other dotted line. When you're finished, that's what a running stitch looks like. When you get down to the end of the running stitch, and I did the running stitch with the peach thread, when you get down to the end, there I am showing you what the running stitch looks like, and that was the peach thread. When you get done with that, you're going to come up at the end with another color, and this, it makes it just kind of extra. I think I went with some pink thread. And you take that pink thread, and just like you did in the top one with the green, I even showed you the color for that one, but you just go, you come up through the second hole that you've made where it's going to fill the gap, and then you're going to go under. You're not doing any, you're doing all of your work on the top of the paper, and you're going under the stitch back and forth. So one stitch looks like it's under, then the next little hump is over and under and over all the way through. And again, I don't know what the name of that stitch is. I don't really embroider, so I know some of these stitches have names, but I don't know the name of all of them. I've always just called this one the candy cane because you can do 2 different colors, and it kind of looks like a little candy cane if you're using red and white. Here I use the pink and the peach, and I love how that looks. It's just an extra special little stitch. I love the texture that hand stitching gives you, and I want mine to look, I like to do all these different stitches and just give you that extra little bit of interest. And getting that finished up here with the stitching. If you have extra questions about stitching, feel free to leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and I can answer any specific questions that you might have. This stitch, it really looks awkward doing it in this way. Normally I have my work a lot closer to me or hanging off the edge of the table where it's not trying to work so far away from your body. For me, when I'm stitching, it's just a lot easier to work closer to my body. I must have showed all of this and not cut any of that part out. I hope this video isn't too long for you. You can leave me a comment about what you really like seeing. I know not everyone hand stitches, but I wanted to show some of this on here just so that if you are interested, you can see that it's not that hard. It's not that time consuming. It takes a little time, but it's definitely worth it to me because I find the stitching relaxing anyway, and it's worth it to me because I just love the way it looks. It just adds that little bit of something extra. And there's what it looks like done. I do have some close-ups at the end of the video as well that you can see. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to see the close-ups of this layout as well. I will have each one of the close-ups on there so that you can see the stitching, you can see the shakers, you can see how I embellished. I'm showing you here each of the different sequin mixes. Several are from Spiegel Mom Scraps, and then I have 2 from Pretty Little Studio. And I actually just picked and chose some of each to make my own mix. And I love doing that. If I thought the colors in there worked well, then I added those pieces. So in some of those mixes, I didn't use all of the colors that were in the mix. I just chose a few sequins that went well with the colors that I'm working with here on this layout. As I'm putting them in, I'm trying to have a good mix of each color. I'm going to show you here that it shakes and it works well in there. I don't want to get too many in that it won't shake, but I want to have some coverage too. So that looks like it's pretty good. So I'm going to glue it together. This glue dries pretty quickly, so you have to work fast to make sure that you have good enough coverage that it's going to hold it, because if it's not secure all the way around, then your sequins can escape when they're shaking. So we don't want that. I always end up with a little extra because I do want to have that good coverage, but it dries clear, so even if it does get on top piece, then it dries clear, so you're not going to see it. I try not to get so much that it's going to really goop up in there where the sequins are, because then it might glue a sequin or two close to the edge. With a small little design like this, a couple of them staying in one place probably wouldn't hurt anything anyway, but I like them to really be able to shake nicely. So I did try and pick, so this one is the blue one, so I tried to get some of the darker blue in this that I didn't put in the yellow or I didn't put in the pink. You'll see me kind of going back and forth and taking one out and being real choosy, and it's completely not necessary. I don't think that anybody else besides me would ever notice what colors I put in each one, but I like to fiddle. I like to make everything just how I want it, I guess. My blue one all finished, and we gotta get the pink one in. I could have probably stopped after showing you how I did 1 or 2, but here we go with number 3. Feel free to fast forward through some of this if it gets monotonous to you. I'll even fiddle around and make the sequin fit in the right direction up. One of the mixes, one of those Spiegel Mom Scraps mixes had some really teeny tiny sequins, and I wanted to make sure I had a good number of those in each one of these shakers too, because the little ones really shake well. And I don't always glue them on the projects individually with those little teensy tiny ones, but they sure are beautiful in a shaker, and they work beautifully to shake. Aren't they cute? So fun. One little embellishment. So I'm going to set those aside to dry. And here I am showing you one of my favorite die sets. It's from Pink and Main, and it makes these little 3D bows. I am obsessed with these bows. I used them like crazy at Christmas time. So you cut out 3 pieces for each of the bows. They have the part that makes the little bow, which is what I'm doing now, and I just kind of curl them a little bit so that it will fold over easily. You fold it in half and let the glue sit there. Then this piece is the bottom part of the bow, and that set comes with one that goes straight on like the one I'm doing, but it also has one that goes down under the bow, so you can have a different style of bow. I love the plaid paper for doing bows, and like I said, I did a bunch of them at Christmas. This is the smallest size that I'm using here, and I wanted the smallest size just because I'm only adding it up there for one of the tag toppers. Let's see that here. I knew I wanted one right above them. The girls are both wearing these bows that have the material and then a fluffy little bunny tail, and then the top part where the bunny ears are on the bow is actually a shaker, and it's a plastic something with sequins inside. So kind of my bunny Peep shakers just went with these photos so well. I just love it. They're so cute. A lady that is here local makes these bows, and my older granddaughter there, the brown-haired girl, she is a little bow model for that company, and so we have lots of fun bows from that company, and it's always fun to see what new things she's creating. These are some of my favorites. So here I am just tying my bows in each of the, and some of them are bows and some of them are just straight through, but I'm tying each color of thread on a different tag. I did that one first just with one layer and decided it needed to have a little extra oomph. So I doubled that up. I always glue down the edges of my bows too. So with the yellow and with the regular floss, I used all 6 strands and then tied either a bow or a knot, and then I just glue down the edges to be where I want them to be. And that way it keeps the edges together and they're not just all separating, and in my opinion, it just looks nicer, and it still looks kind of organic in how I shape them and then put them in a way that looks like they're just loose, but I keep the ends squished together, and liquid glue works fantastic for that. I'm twisting it a little bit because that one really wanted to separate. Just add the little dot of glue, and then I add another little dot of glue right at the end so that it doesn't fray out and look fuzzy there. And I go back and forth. These are the peach and the pink that I did for the last stitch, and I'm trying to decide which way to go with that. The first put the pink through this one, but I had added the little die flower that's pink on that, and I decided I didn't like the pink thread through it. I wanted it to look a little bit, I wanted that on the one beside it because I didn't want 2 different pinks there together. It looked okay, but I changed my mind and decided to go with the peach on that. And it was just a real easy little fix there to move it over to the other side. So that's what I did on that one. And I trimmed it off pretty short. Sometimes I leave my threads so that they pop up out of the page protector when I'm finished. You can see a little fun bit as you're turning your pages. So get this one down, and I'm going to glue the edges of it as well. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I will finish a layout and look at it and then decide I need one more thing. And I did that in this case as well. I think I have on every video since I started doing YouTube, which isn't very many, but it seems to be a trend because that's just the normal way. I always do that whether I'm filming or not. I come back to it and I think, oh, whatever, you needed one more thing. In this case, I completely forgot that I bought the puffy stickers in the Bunny Hop collection. And as I was cleaning up to get ready for my next project, I saw them and I thought, oh my goodness, I have to have these little puffy peeps on here because that is the only reason I bought this whole collection, because those peeps are so cute. And I bought those before I even had the shakers, but I knew I had to get those added in because they are so cute. They gave the perfect little finishing touches. Not sure if I showed you yet the Peeps. There they are right there. There's the bows. The Peeps die set came with these little bows that could be a bow tie if you wanted a little boy Peep, but of course mine had to have Peeps in their ears because girls have bows on their heads. So I'm adding a different color for each one. The bunny that is blue has a little yellow bow, and the bunny that's yellow has a little pink bow. And then we get down to the bottom with the pink bunny, and I added a blue bow for that one. So as we are, this is a little bit farther away so that you can see the whole thing. I did pop up each of those shakers, well, the middle one and the top one, because it was going to be, it had to be popped up so that it would match the layer below it. So hello was overlapping the picture that was popped up. So I had to pop up the Peep because it was overlapping the hello. Otherwise it would have been uneven and that wouldn't work for the shaker. And here I didn't realize I was too low because I hadn't cut off my doily yet. So I had to hurry up before that glue dried and push it up because we definitely couldn't have that. For my flair, I had to pop up part of it so that it could overlap part of my little Peep there. My Peep flair and Peep might have gone a little Peep crazy. Never have too many Peeps. So this one is also going to be overlapping the photo that's popped up. So I have to pop up that half to match the height of the other. So I'm adding that on there and just using my adhesive to stick that down. That cluster over there just is the doily and the Peep and the tag underneath, and I didn't think it needed anything else, so I left it as is. This flair, I pop it up there with just one layer, but it still was not quite right height-wise, so I end up adding another layer underneath of it so that it would lay nice and flat. I had cut out, the die also came with this cute little flower that really is exactly the same flower that's used paper from this collection. So I had the same 3 colors, and they even had the little dots, so I added a different color dot inside each one of them that matched with the bows on the Peeps that I did. So continuing on with that. In the close-ups, you'll see I stopped there. I stopped here, I think, with the embellishing, but as soon as I found the puffy stickers, oh no, I have to add sequins. I think I'll show the sequins that I add in here on camera also. And then I found the Peeps and the little flowers and things on the puffy sticker sheet, and I add those in, and you will see those in the close-ups. And like I said, you'll see them also on Instagram if you want to see that as well, so that you can stop. And oh, I did add a few stickers off of this sticker sheet, not a whole lot. There just wasn't a whole lot of room left to add any more embellishing. I was trying to keep my embellishments fairly small because I didn't want to add any other clusters anywhere. I just wanted to add just little bits here and there with the clusters that I already have. So this is green instead of yellow, and I was toying with this across the top, and I kind of liked it. And even as I watch it back, I don't hate it, but it didn't really need it, and I decided it wasn't quite the right color I wanted. The green was underneath with the thread, and I just thought it kind of distracted. So I ended up taking it off and putting it back in there, getting that fun little 3D bow down. And then I'm going to add some sequins in a few places here and there. Not too many. I just add them in 2 different places, maybe 3 different places. And I will save all of that new mix I made together with this collection because I still have lots and lots and lots of Easter pictures that I want to do. So I will use the new little mix that I made myself on some of the other layouts that I do. I just put it in a little baggie and kept that so I don't have to pull out all of the other mixes again. It'll just stay with the collection. And just picking out which ones I like in each place. I really, really thank you so much for sticking with me through this whole video. I know it was long, and all of my videos will not be this long. I did so many different stitches and then the shakers as well, and I wanted to leave it in case anyone was interested in how you do those kinds of things. I'm sure there's lots of videos out there that do hand stitching and lots of videos out there that do shakers, but I thought I would show you my take on that. Finish up with the doily. I would love, love for you to leave me a comment, like the video, add this to your subscription list. I will have lots more videos coming up, and if you leave me a comment about what you're interested in learning about, maybe I can help. Maybe I can do a video or something that you're interested in. So I really appreciate you watching and subscribing and liking my video. And we will see you next time. Enjoy the close-ups here. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.